Welcome to Loving Me Before I Love You with Tammy Nicole, the podcast dedicated to you loving and putting yourself first. Others have come first in your life for years, and you know it's time for that to change. You're about to be empowered to set healthy boundaries, confidently have hard conversations, unapologetically put yourself first, and live the peaceful life you deserve. Remember, self-love is essential, and loving yourself sets the stage for every other love in your life. So get ready to embrace self-love like never before with your host, Coach Tammy Nicole.
Hey. Welcome back. It is Transformation Tuesday over here at Loving Me Before I Love You. And we will do no other than have a wonderful day today, right? So this is the month of July, you guys. We have made it all the way to July. I cannot believe it. The year is moving by so fast. But what do we do in July? What is the major holiday we do? 4th of July, Independence, Liberation, living our best lives. And so this month, we will be talking about exactly that. Women who have decided to live their authentic selves and live from a liberated sense of being. And so I have several women lined up this month to share their paths with us. And today's episode, we are starting out with Freedom to Flourish, how I found liberation in embracing my authentic path. And I have a phenomenal guest with me today. She has walked in her authentic path, and she's going to share with us how, when, and what the steps were, where the challenges were. She's going to give it all to us. And I have none other than Miss Shanetria Bady. Welcome to the show, Miss Shanetria.
Thank you for having me, Coach Tammy Nicole. I appreciate you.
Awesome. I'm so glad you decided to join us.
I'm excited. This is my first time being featured on a podcast.
Well, welcome.
I know. Welcome. You get to break me in, girl. I'm excited.
Yes, for the journey of what's to come.
Yes,
I love it. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Share with the people.
Well, my name is Shanetria Bady. I am a proud mother. I am an expert traveling natural hair care incubator, health and life coach, and CEO of Spirals Kinks and Coils, LLC. Really what excites me most about my entire life journey is that I went from lukewarm Christianity to really finding redemption in Jesus Christ and understanding what being on fire for God looks like, learning from my mistakes and using that to empower me on a journey of resilience and self-discovery and faith and perseverance. And I just want to help people get from where I've been to where I am because it's a beautiful thing.
Man, tell me about it. When you tap in to who you are after discovering whose you are, baby, there's no stopping.
Yeah, it hit different.
It ain't nothing that can stop you because you live from a sense of freedom.
Yeah.
No one understands what being free is until they're free within themselves through the power of Christ. Just being able to it's like looking at a flower that's whimsical in the air, that's just blowing without any regard and living its best life. It ain't worried about if it's going to get stomped on. It ain't worried about if it's going to land in a space of just turmoil. It's just living. It's just the air is going to take it where it needs to go.
Yeah. And I really didn't understand how bound I was until I got free.
Mm-hmm.
It was so apparent to me that a lot of what I was doing, a lot of what I was tolerating, a lot of my thoughts, I was just bound and I was content I was just content in it. And it wasn't until I made a genuine, true decision to give my life back to God that I really got set free and my life has never been the same.
Tell me about that journey.
Well, I got saved when I was a little girl, actually. I remember being a little girl in church, I was probably between 7 and 9, writing notes back and forth, passing them, getting in trouble when you hear the finger snap.
Mm-hmm.
In the middle of the pew, you know you got to sit up straight because you done got caught playing in church while service is going. And the pastor did an altar call. And I remember feeling like I was being pushed to get up. And I was like, I looked behind me, with nobody behind me. I was like, okay, this is weird. But I felt this tug. And I got up as a little girl, put my hands up, and I had never felt so much love and warmth wash over me before. And I just wept with my hands in the air, surrendered. I wept. And that's when I gave my life to Christ. Now, I didn't really come into a full understanding of what that choice meant
Mm-hmm.
until I got older.
Mm-hmm.
I understood what it was, but I didn't fully embrace it. I was lukewarm for a really long time, nitpicking the pieces of the Bible that I liked.
Oh,
That
you
benefit.
was tearing them up.
Absolutely. My
Yes.
biblical
Yes.
literacy was on point. Okay.
Yes.
I was
Man,
picking and choosing. I was
which
making
one we
verses
gonna
make
live
sense.
by?
I was leaning on my own understanding real heavy. And I was making justifications for my actions through pieces of the word that I liked and didn't like. Well, David could do this, so I'm good. And
Yeah.
Ruth did this, so I'm straight. And Esther was like, so I'm okay. And
Right.
so I got to a point where I was scrolling social media. I was watching YouTube. YouTube is like TV. And I was
Mm-hmm.
watching YouTube and I stumbled across these two different testimonies. And after stumbling across these testimonies, this is after I had went through an additional journey. I got myself into a polyamorous relationship as a Christian.
Mm.
And I explained it with the Bible. I was perfectly content in it. And
Mm.
it was being in that situation that birthed, I became a mother. It birthed my motherhood.
Mm-hmm.
And when I had a child, it changed my thinking. When I had a child, I realized how much I needed God.
Mm-hmm.
And while my baby was laying next to me one night, I was stumbling across social media and I saw these two testimonies and I cried out to God for the first time in my life and I really, really meant it and I fully repented. And from that day, I have never looked back. And that's
Mm-hmm.
truly when my life changed. And if I'm being fully transparent, I gave God my life when I was 7 or 8 years old, but I didn't really mean it until 2023. So this is recent for me, but in a
Mm-hmm.
short period of time, you know how the word says that a day with God is like
Suddenly.
1,000 years?
Mm-hmm.
My life changed quick and things started to happen. He took me into a period of prayer and fasting like never before. And I saw things break off my life that I didn't even realize were there.
Mm-hmm.
I sought counseling because therapy and Jesus are a beautiful combination.
They're the best.
They are. Like, I sought counseling and I work with my therapist, and she was Christian. She was amazing. And she really helped me see some of the patterns that I was falling into and helped me understand why I got myself into certain situations. And she helped me notice, like, okay, you noticed the red flag, but why did you ignore it? Let's get to the root
Right.
of that.
Of that. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And so I
Yeah.
was really able to get to a lot of the root of my traumas, and it gave me a freedom to love myself differently and let God
Mm-hmm.
in a way that I never knew how to do before.
Yeah. I think a lot of times when we get saved young, right? I was saved young myself. And we call ourselves church babies or what have you. Sometimes when I felt like for myself, I'm going to speak for me. When I went off to college is when I felt the shift between my relationship with God versus when I was a child and because now I'm an adult and I'm making my own decisions. No one's forcing me to go to church. No one is forcing me to do Sunday school or any Bible study or anything like that. And so you had to have your own personal relationship with him during that time. And so I was still going to church. I was still, I've never been, and it's so crazy. People may talk, I just never have been an avid Bible reader. I read my word, but typically it's on my app. I do a plan
Yep.
because sometimes I just don't simply understand the process. And me and God just have this relationship. It's like, my relationship with him ain't got to be the same as everybody else's, right? A lot of time people feel like there's only one type or one way to be a Christian, and you need to know that Bible forwards and backwards, and you need to. And I'm
That's why they
like, wait,
call it a relationship.
that part. I don't do
It's
religion. I do
person
relationship.
personal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I developed at first. So my lukewarm Christianity, I would describe it as traditionalism. I went to church on Easter. I went to church on Thanksgiving. I went to church on Christmas. I went to church when I was supposed to go to church. I went to Bible study. I went to Sunday school. I went to the choir rehearsal. I even praise danced. I did whatever thought I was supposed to do. But when I learned what it meant to be in relationship with God, that's when I actually started to have a hunger to read His Word. I would have moments where I would pray and be like, "Okay, God, I need you to speak to me," and I would just open my Bible and start reading. And wherever I landed, I would just start at the top of the page and
Right.
get to reading. I'm like, I need you to give me something. I need you to tell me something.
Gotcha.
And that's how I actually started learning the word, is just random opening of the scriptures.
Yeah. I- and that, like I said, for everybody is so different.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that once you become an adult and it's like making a conscious decision on how to live,
Yeah.
a lot of it, it really comes through that real, honest, open decision and relationship. It just doesn't always just like automatic, like, oh, the Bible does says train up a child in the way should go, he will not depart from it. And I am a full believer that that is true, because
Yeah.
even in the waywardness, even in the doing things my way,
Yeah.
he
There's
ain't
still
never left.
the
I
Holy
still
Spirit
know where
still there.
to, and
You
I still know where the heck to
you
go when
like, let me not go this far. I can go up to this line, but I won't
I
cross.
ain't that
I don't
part.
want to go that far. Yeah, I understand. And like when I made a conscious decision when I got older to really seek God for myself, that was the first time I experienced church hurt, because I had picked the church. I had participated. I had got involved. And I was praise dancing and ministering. I was even teaching to the youth how to praise dance and how to minister. And my car broke down, and single woman, didn't know what to do. Not in a relationship, because I'm trying to be holy. So I'm not opening my legs in my 20s. So I wasn't dating in my 20s very much. And so I asked the church van to come and get me. And that man did not show up. I called him when service was starting. He answered the phone. I could hear the music. And I'm like, I thought you said you were on your way. He was like, yeah, I changed my mind. Click.
Oh wow.
That was my first church hurt experience. And I blamed God for a really long time. I didn't go to church. I didn't read my word. I was hurt. But I had to remind myself, Jackie Hill Perry said this on a podcast. I can't remember whose podcast, so forgive me, but she said you can't blame their humanity.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't diminish God's divinity.
Divinity. Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that's good. If somebody had told me that when I was hurt, I might have been able to come out of it a little bit quicker. And I had to remind myself that the church is a hospital. Everybody that goes to the church is sick in some way, even the pastor, because God can use anybody. No one has to be perfect. That is the glory of the grace. His grace is sufficient.
Mm-hmm.
That even though I have scars, even though I may stutter, even though I may stumble, God can still use me. God can use an atheist to give you a word that you need to hear. Do you know what I mean? That's how powerful he is.
Yeah.
And so we need to, honestly, I just think as a people, we need to start seeking God for ourselves personally and stop waiting on other people to show us who God is, because we can go find him.
Well, he said, study yourself to show yourself approved. So
yeah, he also says, "Seek me while I'm still able to be found."
Correct.
Which means at some point you may get to looking, and he ain't gonna be there. He ain't gonna be there
because we gonna all be gone.
Who you telling? I would like to go at the first trumpet, Lord. Please and thank you.
not the third, right? But I'm with you. I am with you. So as you were discovering, or shall I say rediscovering yourself, and during that process, what do you think, or what did you find to be the most challenging in the change?
Killing my own desires, dying to self. Dying to self was hard. And a lot of people don't really know what that means, but it was choosing God even when no one was looking. It was choosing God in the dark. that was hard, because it's really easy to look like you have it together when you walk outside and you can say the right things and you can do the right things when people are looking. But
Mm-hmm.
behind closed doors, what were my thoughts? Behind closed doors, what were my actions? I
Mm-hmm.
really had to come to the realization that I couldn't fix everything by myself, that I really needed God to come in and move. I had to really up my prayer life so that I could get him to move for me in areas that I couldn't figure it out on my own. Like there were things that I struggled with. There were things that I couldn't figure out how to stop doing. And I needed God to step in for that.
Yeah. You know,
I lost a lot of friends. A lot. My circle turned into
girl,
a
to
dot, child.
zero.
Do you know that I went to a friend's house and I had let them know, and I was like, yep, I 100% gave my life back to God. I'm not doing this. Don't tell me that girl business, because I don't want to gossip. I don't want to know. And she would get to talking and I'd be like, does this have anything to do with my life? Is this going to benefit me in some way? Do I need to just pray for this person? Or are you about to share something that she told you in confidence? Because if you sharing tea, I'm going to have to pass. I'm not thirsty. And I would get mad. I would get some looks, and it got to a point where phone calls became few and few. And I genuinely lost friends. I got laughed at by a few people that claimed to
Mhm.
be close, reminded me of who I used to be, things I used to do, things I used to say. And I had to remind myself that with God, the old things are passed away and I am new.
Mhm.
I don't have to be who they say I am. I don't have to be who they remember. If they don't want to get to know who I'm becoming, then I can become it all by myself.
Yeah. That definitely, I think, is one of the first signs of the newness being new, is when the old things really shed, and they shed on their own. They don't have to be, sent away, or
Mm-hmm.
like there's
Purged.
no argument, there's
Yeah.
no fallout. There's
Yeah.
like,
It's like
oh,
a
they're
simple
gone.
fading. Yeah. It's like 3 weeks ago we was inseparable. Today I'm questioning if I want to call. Is that the right thing to do? God, do you want me to call their number? Do you want me to interact with that person? And that's what I meant, dying to self. I want to reach out to this person because I love them. I care about them. I want to be in their life. But God, what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
I had to die to self. Okay, this is what I want, but what I want is irrelevant. God, what do you want? And then
Hmm.
go by that. That
Yeah.
was the hardest part.
And having his desires replace your own, because he says he will give you the desires of your heart, but it's
Yeah.
really the desires that he places within you.
Yeah.
And so, but having that desire sometimes is like, oh, wait, do I really want that?
But see, even that one scripture, people mix that up. They go, God will give me the desires of my heart, which means, and you know my favorite thing that Christians say? God knows my heart. He does. He knows in your heart you are so full of pride that you are going to do what you're going to do anyway and just say, I know God will forgive me because he's forgiving. It's okay. I'm going to do this, but God going to forgive me. It's going to be all right. I'm going to steal this $20 and God going to forgive me. It's going to be okay. I'm going to lie and I'm going to cuss and I'm going to beat my children and it's going to be fine because God going to forgive me.
Yeah. We will manipulate the system.
Absolutely. All the time. It was easy. It was easier to manipulate it. But that's where the challenge comes in. And there's a sense of accomplishment that I get when I force myself not to do that.
Mhm.
Wow, today's episode is a good one. I know you're enjoying it, and we'll get back to it shortly. Just wanted to take a quick break to let you know that Tammy would love for you to share any questions, comments, or topic ideas you have with her. All you have to do is send them to her in an email to podcast@IamTammyNicole.com. Thank you, and without further ado, let's get back into today's show.
Did you ever deal with fear or doubt
All the time.
when you were when you were like, I'm going to pursue this, I am going to go upon this authentic path through
All the time.
Christ?
I felt embarrassed for a really long time because a lot of people that knew me in college, I was a celibate Christian girl, very goody two shoes. And I got out of college. Some family stuff went on that really broke my heart. And I decided I was going to go create my own new family. I was going to go find me a family and create my own thing. And that's how I got into the poly relationship. You know how they talk about open doors?
Mm-hmm.
I was watching TV shows about polygamy. I was watching Big Love. I was watching Escaping Polygamy. I was watching Sister Wives. I was watching Seeking Sister Wives. I was watching all these shows, and all of these shows were open doors that I didn't realize were normalizing an idea that was not of God for my life. And so when the opportunity presented itself, it sounded great. I had yet to meet a man that didn't cheat. So in my mind, this was the perfect opportunity to have my cake and eat it too. At least I'll know what's happening. Nobody could tell me anything about my relationship because I know what's going on. I'll know who the other girl is. I'll know, and I'll know her, and we'll have a bond, and it's going to be great. And the hardest part for me was after getting into that situation, realizing how toxic it was, realizing that I needed professional help to figure out how I got myself in it. And I needed God to create a way for me to get out because now I brought a child into the world in this situation. And this is not the example that I want for my child. This is not what I want them to grow up in. I want them to grow up with what I grew up with. I want them to know who the Lord is. And everything about this is opposite God. Everything about it. And God gave me a way out. Praise the Lord for that. But when I got out, the scariest thing was running into somebody that knew me in college. Oh my God, that was terrifying. I would run into people and they would be like, "You have a baby? Did you get married? How did this happen? I saw pictures of you on social media. Were you in a throuple? How does that work? Aren't you a Christian? I'm confused." And I always felt like I had to explain myself. And the fear of explaining myself, it was more so about my shame than about God's glory. And it took time, it took counseling, it took his love, it took reading his word, it took coming into the understanding that transformation is not about shame. It's about the glory of God, that even through that, God prevailed, that even through that, I sought him, that even through that, he blessed me with a son because children are a gift. My son motivates me like nothing else. He lit a fire under me to seek God so heavy that if I had not have had him, I might still be bound. So it's like God knew exactly what he was doing, but the fear of man is always there. God told me in April of 2023 to tell my story. I was like, "Say what? Excuse you? I'm uncomfortable. I have no desire to be judged by other Christians for being a lukewarm Christian, being biblically illiterate, and choosing my own path. I don't want to do that." But it wasn't about what I wanted. It was about what he needed from me. That's the difference.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that your story is not your own. It's the story for someone else's life.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything that we go through in life is for somebody else at
Yeah.
some point in their life. And so you are developing and getting the skill sets and the tools and the experience to be able to share with them, "Hey, this is how I overcame. This is how I made it through. You're not alone."
Mm-hmm.
Because nothing is new underneath the sun. Like everything that
Exactly.
God created, it has a repeat. It just repeats and it repeats generation after generation. And so you go through things so that you can grow through things, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
help other people through it.
Exactly.
It's just not just because, like, everybody, I think about people that say, "Oh my God, I was dealt a bad hand." It's like, no, you were
Mm-mm.
dealt the hand he created you for. You have to learn how to play it.
Exactly. And see, I thought about delayed obedience is still disobedience. So when I didn't tell my
Absolutely.
story in April, I thought to myself, how many souls was I supposed to reach that didn't get reached because of my disobedience? That blood is on my hands. And that terrified me more than the fear of man. The reality that God created me for a purpose and I am supposed to reach people with what I've been through. Somebody needs to know that my son was my fourth pregnancy, not my first. Somebody needs to know that I aborted 2 babies and miscarried one and thought that God was punishing me. But little did I know my mom had prayed over my life and had been praying over my life that no child would enter this world through me that was not part of my destiny. Little did I know, but I'm thinking God hates me because I've aborted 2 babies and now I miscarried one. So it means that I can't have children. It means that I'm not worthy of that. And I punished myself for so long. See, the enemy will use our shame because people are afraid to talk. They're afraid to open their mouths. They're afraid to ask for help. And the silence feeds the shame.
Absolutely.
And so we have to be okay with being vocal and being vulnerable and remembering that if you let God have his way, he can use your story in a way to glorify him so much so that you're irrelevant in the situation. Somebody is going to hear this and they're not going to remember my name, but they're going to know about the glory of God over my life. And they're going to know that he can glorify their life too.
Mm-hmm.
You know what
Absolutely.
I mean? They're going to be able to find him through something
Mm-hmm.
if it's meant for me to
Absolutely.
reach them. And so that's what helped with the fear is that truth.
I think a lot of times, shame will always debilitate us, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like shame and fear.
Yeah.
It'll lock you down into a space of not being able to move.
Yeah.
Which is for me where like self-love and all of that comes into play, because when you love yourself, nothing about you should ever be shameful or embarrassing because you have to
Yep.
accept it all, you know.
Yep.
um I tell a story like I used to be not afraid of my voice, but I used to not like it. And I still don't technically like it, right?
I'm with you. I've heard
Uh,
myself on recording. I'm like, is that what I sound like? Ooh, that's annoying.
right. Like I just have always had an issue with my voice as a kid growing up. It's raspy, it's deep, it's not feminine, soft, and ladylike. And so it would be an issue. You would, kids, oh, are you a man? Little stuff like that.
That don't make
You
you no less of a woman, child.
Absolutely not.
Mm,
However, though I knew that, it still did not take away that fear and anxiety to speak.
mhm.
And I know that when I would have interactions with people one on one, it would be almost like, oh my God, you need to say that. Oh my God, you need to go, speak here, speak there. And I'm like, oh, no, 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 not with this voice. Okay, I can do your one on one stuff, which is, how I got into therapy in the beginning. It's like,
Yep.
do the therapy. Like, I knew that whatever I had to do had to be done through my mouth.
Mm,
And so not until I really embraced me in totality and loving me, no matter what, like it doesn't matter what other people think. It doesn't matter what other people desire regarding me.
mhm.
It matters what I think and what I desire. And all of that should derive from how he thinks and how he desires about me.
Exactly.
And so now I got a whole podcast and you can't stop me from talking. So
Amen.
it doesn't matter anymore,
That's what I'm talking
and
about.
so you have to be able to allow the love for you to exude beyond your fear, beyond your shame. So
Yeah.
kudos to you. Kudos
Thank
to you.
you. Girl, that was therapy in Jesus. I just participated. I put in the work. That's it.
And
But the
being
self love
willing.
is, yeah, that was huge. It was having it took a lot to hear my therapist's feedback and accept that this is possibly really what's happening in my mind, because nobody wants to hear, like, for example, one of the things that she helped me realize was a lot of the relationships I was getting into, I was repeating emotional trauma from my past.
Mhm.
And I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. Because she was like, well, you're finding men that treat you like your dad. I'm like, that doesn't really make sense. My dad he was kind of in and out. She was like, and how did that make you feel? I'm like, well, kind of irrelevant. She's like, you are finding men that make you feel like your emotions are irrelevant. I'm like,
Mhm.
wait a minute, hold up, backtrack. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go back. And we went through relationship by relationship, situations and scenarios one by one and broke them down and got to the root of my emotions. And I was like, dang, I got to get healed from this thing. I got to let this go.
Yeah.
And that's where Jesus came in. Jesus, God said he'll be the father to the fatherless.
Yeah.
And I love my dad. Like, he's in my life now, but there are spaces and there are gaps that I have to let God fill so that I'm not trying to internalize that void.
Yeah. I did a whole series on daddies last month. So
Did you, girl?
you'll have to,
I'm gonna
go
have to check.
listen.
Oh,
Yes.
I am. Definitely am. I'm finna go replay. Hold up.
Yes. So 100% agree that a lot of times we can have the same person with a different face because
Yeah.
of our own traumas and things like that. Like,
Yeah.
you see a lot of people that will trauma bond in relationships, you see, because they don't have that level of freedom, and they have the avoidant, and it's like the attachment styles and
Yeah.
all of those things that have developed due to our experiences. But healing, right? And I always tell people healing is a journey, it's not a destination.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we'd be like, oh, I'm healed. And it's like, yeah, until you're triggered. So
Yeah. And
because all
and
triggers don't come
that
out in the beginning, like
that is
you don't
very
just know
true.
them all.
No, you don't. And so I've recently just learned another one of mine. I was having a conversation with my mom. I was like, Mom, I still got to pray off this spirit of rejection. She's like, why? I said, because when I'm having a conversation with certain people, if we're talking about something and I'm giving my opinion and they go directly from my opinion to their own opinion and they do like a comparison and they go like, yeah, because I blah, 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 blah. I'd be like, dang, did what I just say didn't matter? You didn't even acknowledge what I said. I'm like, hold up. I didn't realize that bothered me. Let me pray on this thing. Let me get to the root of this. Let me figure out what that is. Because it's like no one is perfect. So we are always a work in progress.
Yeah,
The 2024 version of me is better than the 2020 version of me, but 2027 is going to be different because I'm going to
absolutely.
keep working and I'm going to keep putting effort into it and I'm going to keep seeking God and I'm going to keep going to my therapist if I feel like I need that. There may be times where I feel like I don't need it, but I feel like it should always be an option and we shouldn't be afraid of therapy. It's
Oh no,
there to help
everybody.
you. There's
I
some
am
people
a
that feel some type of way about it, but I feel like it's important because I am not equipped to break down my own mental. Like, I don't have the degree for that. I have a degree in public relations. I don't have a degree in that.
yeah,
I need to seek a professional that can help me work out my
yeah,
thoughts. And just validation is nice to know,
yeah.
am I crazy? Am I tripping? Does this sound off? Am I losing it?
It's a
I'm
sounding
not.
board.
It is.
Yeah, it's a sounding board, and I'm a firm believer that therapy is necessary for everybody. I mean, it's necessary for us that are therapists. It's
Yeah.
it's not just, oh, if you're a therapist, you don't get therapy. Oh, no, no, no. Therapists have therapists. I mean, most of us do, and all of us should. It is definitely a way to see things from a different perspective, to have no, what they say, I don't have a dog in this fight. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
here to
Yeah.
get nothing out of it.
Yeah.
So it
People that
doesn't
have no
benefit me.
they just see right through it.
Yeah, it won't benefit me one way or the other. So that's the point to me of having a therapist, because you can always go to a friend, but they have something there. There's a bias always there. You
Yeah.
can go to a family member. There's a bias always there. But when you go to the therapist, they don't care one way or the other. They're telling you the truth that they see. Now, granted, you can say everything is subjective. Everything is X, Y, and Z.
You ain't
That
got
is
to,
true.
but it is what it is.
But you're supposed to align yourself with a therapist that you can relate with and feel comfortable and be able to be vulnerable with, and
Yeah.
say, I'm going to trust what you provide to me. Because you can take the same scenarios and situations and give it to a different therapist who don't see it the same way. You know what I mean? But you have to be able to say, you know what, I need to have the alignment with what's good for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that, to me, you also pray about. You pray to have God align you with the appropriate therapist that He has designed for you, who will
Yeah.
give you what He needs you to have for
Yeah.
whatever revelation, whatever, new thought, new idea, new undercover, dissolved, whatever you got going on, that it's for you. It's for you. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that, to me, is like when embracing living authentically, you have to look at the stuff that you don't like. You have to look at the stuff that is like, oh, okay, that should be put in the trash.
Yeah.
And some stuff you can't put in the trash. Some stuff it's just there because it's a part of you.
Mm-hmm.
It's the thorn in the side. Like it's just, this is your marker. What you gonna do with it?
Yeah.
Do you walk away and hide yourself and never show up, or do you embrace it and say, you know what, it's a part of me. It may not be
Yeah.
all of me, but it
Yeah.
is a part of me, and
Absolutely.
this is how I'm going to address this
Yeah.
part.
Yeah. Just like your story. Your story is part of you. You can't get rid of it. You can't change it. You can't go backwards. You can't go back in time. Your story, you just have to embrace it. Like I had to be okay with the fact that in some circles, I'm the girl that was in the poly relationship. I sure was. And praise God, I'm out.
Yeah,
And I could tell you from personal experience, don't do it. It ain't for everybody. And if it is not something that you believe for a religious practice, I don't recommend. I can't speak to anybody else's religion. I only know about mine, but I don't recommend.
correct. Correct. So, when thinking about giving recommendations, what would you recommend to the listeners who are considering, walking the authentic path, but maybe scared, maybe like, I don't know, I want to do it, but I don't know how people are going to receive me. I want to do it, but I don't know the steps. Can you provide them with recommendations and steps to the process of living an authentic life?
Um, the first thing that I would say is that if you are new to the idea of Jesus Christ and that you know nothing about him, my recommendation is to pray. And the reason being is because that is going to be one of the easiest ways for you to have your own true and personal encounter. And a prayer is a conversation. And with that in mind, you have to allow time for the Holy Spirit to speak back. So it's not a monologue. So when you get to praying, it's just like I'm talking to you and you say whatever is on your mind. Okay, God, I'm new to this. I don't know if you're real. If you are real, I want you to speak to me. This is what I'm struggling with in my life, and I feel like I need help in this area and in this area, and I don't know what to do, and I don't know how to go about it, but I want to try you. The Bible says that if you believe in your heart and confess with your mouth that Jesus Christ died for our sins and rose again, that you will be saved. And that is not a hard thing to confess. A sin is anything that is opposite of God. So, if it was bad, if it made you feel some type of way after you did it, it's likely a sinful thing. And so, find a Bible based church, get online. There are some really great leaders online. Now, you can't believe everybody. A reminder that Christians are also humans that have their own issues, but I believe that if you seek out a Bible based church and if you really want to get to know the word, it says the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. So I heard a life coach say this because his father is a pastor, that if you really want to get to know Jesus for the first time and you're new to the Bible, you start in Proverbs and then you start with the New Testament. You do Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and you just go from there. Do one chapter a day, nothing super major, and open your heart and your mind to the process. And if you feel like that's not enough, find you a therapist that is Christian and go from there. That would be my personal recommendation.
Awesome. And my recommendation, on top of everything that she says, is get yourself a journal and start
Yes.
journaling the process.
Yes.
Be willing to be open. Um, a lot of times you don't know where you're going because you haven't created the plan. And a lot of times you don't know how far you've come because you didn't write down the things that you've gone through. And so journal, and be open.
Yeah.
Be open to the process and be open to the fact that things are not going to go the way you quote unquote desire it. So you may lose friends, you may lose family members, God may uproot you and make you go to a whole nother city and state. You just have to be open to the process.
Yeah.
And remember, that in all of it, stay in the here and now. Be present, period. Mindfulness is super important. You have to be present. Thank you so much for joining us.
You are
It has been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you for having me.
If you would like the people to get in touch with you, do you want to leave your information that they can follow you on social media or reach out via email or anything of that sort?
Sure. You can reach me on all social media platforms under Shanetria Bady. That's Shanetria Bady. You could also reach me under my business, which is Spirals Kinks, the letter N, Coils, LLC. SpiralsKinksandCoils.com. If you would like to book, I am a traveling stylist, so I will come to you if you are in the Minnesota area. But
awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. And for you listeners out there, remember, love yourself so much that the love from others is a bonus. Have a good day. See you next week.
That's a wrap on another episode of Loving Me Before I Love You. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a second to show your support by subscribing and leaving a positive rating and review on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. Stay connected with Tammy. Make sure you're following her on Instagram and TikTok at Coach Tammy Nicole. If you like to work with Tammy or have any questions you'd like her to answer, please head over to www.IamTammyNicole.com. Until next time, always remember to love yourself so much that the love from others is a bonus.